Hello and welcome. You're listening to Village Mama, a podcast that inspires us moms to pause in the midst of our busyness, to connect with each other, and to know that we are not alone on this parenting journey. My name is Charlex, and I'm a transformation coach and mom of two, and I create e-courses for busy moms to help guide them on their journey of self-discovery. Each week, I'm sitting down with moms to talk about their journey of parenting and the lessons that they have learned. I want you to consider this your community. I want you to consider us your tribe. Come on in and relax a bit because you are always welcomed in the Village Mama. Hello, Amanda, and welcome. Can you share a little bit about yourself with our listeners?
Of course. Thank you for having me. So I have been making content on the internet since 2012. I started on YouTube. I am a mom of two, and I started making videos when I was living overseas in Malaysia as a new mom, starting this crazy journey into motherhood and feeling a little bit isolated from other mothers going through this. And so I thought, well, if I can't find my tribe, I think I'm just going to make one. And so it has now evolved into a place where people come to have conversation. And we've moved into Instagram and Facebook. And I've also just launched a podcast called The Sandwich. And so, yeah, it's a fun little space to have conversation and just like live your best life. So
that's awesome. Wow. Malaysia, eh?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. My husband is a pilot. And so we had this opportunity. We got married in 2010, and then he had this opportunity to go to Malaysia, Penang, to be a captain there for Air Asia. And we were like, yeah, no kids. Hello. And then we ended up having kids there, but it was an amazing experience.
That is so awesome. So what was it like being an expat in Malaysia with young kids? Like, what was that experience like for you?
Well, it was actually the most amazing, delicious, colorful experience of my life thus far. I think sometimes people can be fearful of change and think like, well, I could never take my kids and go to a new place and start new. But I think when you have your children in a place, it imprints on you. And it was so easy. First of all, it's permanent summer. So everybody's in like summer clothing and sandals.
That sounds amazing.
Oh my God, it was so good. And it was just such a different quality of life. Like your friends become your family. It's a very like complex subject matter because there's so much you give up in order to go and live somewhere else. But there's so much you gain as well. And it's just an interesting time. Like the photos, the stories, the fact that my kids identify with being born somewhere else is kind of neat too. But it's something I miss all the time. Like it's actually difficult for me to talk about because it's such an emotional thing to go and become a mother somewhere and spend like 4.5 years and then come back. It's like, whoa. So it was an amazing experience.
Oh, wow. And so how old are your kids, Amanda?
So I have a daughter. She's 6. Her name is Esme. And my son, Jack, is 4. So we are like, I feel like we've just entered this new chapter where life is fun. Like, I mean, not that it wasn't fun before, but it's so much easier. Like they play, you can kind of step back a bit and take more time for yourself and like watch them live their life as children rather than like be in there as much. So it's really fun.
See, I totally agree with that. That's exactly what I remember back when my kids were little. Like I remember because my kids are 18 months apart. And so when I was in it, I was in it, right?
Girl. Yeah. That's almost like worse than twins because they're so close in age, right? But then at different chapters and different times. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so once they actually got to that place where they can just like play on their own and they were like little best friends, like, oh, I love it. I love it. And they're still like that, like they're so kind to each other. They love each other so much. I'm loving this stage and I hope this stage just lasts forever.
How old are your kids again?
9 and 8.
9 and 8. See, yeah, you're even like a few steps ahead. Like, but it gets exciting. It gets me excited for what's to come next. Like traveling when you're not wearing your children, and it's like I went through Southeast Asia with like a 50-pound baby on me. It felt like, God,
oh my gosh.
I know. And it was hot, but you go and we're like, they're experiencing their own things and creating their own memories. Like it's an exciting time. So fun.
That's pretty awesome. And so when you first had your kids, because again, you were away, I'm assuming that your mom wasn't with you,
She
right?
wasn't. No,
She
yeah.
wasn't. Okay. And so did you really feel prepared, or what was going through your mind back then?
Oh God. It's interesting because it was like we had been trying to have a baby. And then once I got pregnant, like in those early stages, I was one of those women who got a little bit of anxiety while pregnant. And I was ready to pack up shop and go right back to Canada. Like I was freaking out because I hadn't quite met other women having children. It was like this thing where I was young enough to meet young people, but I was married and I wasn't working. So it was a very awkward time to actually meet other expats. It was almost like I needed the kid, which was like the entry ticket into these groups, but I didn't have one yet. So it was pretty overwhelming. But once I started to, and I think that's really why I landed online. Like I was starting to watch other families and women, creating these communities on YouTube before I even knew it was a thing. And I was like, why am I watching this woman every Wednesday at 2 p.m. or whatever, and I was like, why am I here again? And I realized, right, because they are creating this safe space to talk about motherhood, your fears, your hopes, your struggles. And there are still women I remember who unfortunately don't create content anymore, but those were my people. Those were like my big sisters that I could look at who were walking this path ahead of me. Because you're right, like my parents are fairly young. And so they were working while I was abroad. And it's a big deal to take a 30-hour flight to Southeast Asia. And travel is not for everyone. And so I didn't have them. And so ultimately it was initially like finding other women in motherhood to help me like calm my fears. However, there were a ton of them. And then all of the, I don't want to say struggles, but I had a difficult birth experience. It wasn't the easiest breastfeeding journey. It ended up being great, but it started kind of rocky. And I took all of that and really started to realize if I'm feeling this way, there's got to be other women walking the same path, having these similar struggles. And so I took it and created videos about it and started conversation. And I know I've reached out, women have reached out to me and said, you helped me during this time. And so it's almost like I gave to them, but then they gave back to me. And then it was interesting, like a full circle thing when I had my son. I was like going down that road again, but now I had women in the community that I was having these weekly baby groups with. We're able to have these chats from all over the world, which was really cool, just different styles of motherhood. And I reached out in person. So I had like the online people and then the in-person people, but then there were tons of video calls to mama back home. Like, what is happening? Oh gosh. I remember the one story that comes to mind is I had it in my mind that my newborn, my daughter, wasn't going to have a pacifier. What was it? Like, what was going on there? And I was like, I thought my tatas were going to fall off my body. And I was like, this is not working. So my daughter was born December 8th. And by December 24th, I was like dying. And my mom's like, that's it. You tell your husband, go buy a soother, go buy the pacifier. I literally like yelled at Dean, go buy the pacifier. He bought like 8. It was the greatest experience of my life. I know for us, it didn't impact breastfeeding. I had it in my mind that it would like ruin this breastfeeding relationship. And she breastfed. She would have breastfed till she was 8. Honestly, that child. So like, it's funny how when you just don't have women to bounce these simple things off of, you can create these stories in your mind. And so knowing that, it was able to create videos about that and find the humor in it. But at the time, it was insane.
And I love what you said about like just the idea of having something in your mind, because I think that we all have theories. We go into motherhood and we have theories about this is the way I'm going to do things. And I remember like making a birth plan, because it's like my midwives like really encouraged it. And, so I wrote down this entire birth plan. I was super excited about it, and then we get in there and then my daughter ended up in fetal distress. And so they needed to switch things up. And I was like, it's not in the plan, but that's the thing. Like we have things set in our minds as moms. And I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, and it sounds like you have too, is just around this idea of letting go. Go into it with your best ideas of what this is supposed to be like, but also just kind of be present enough in the journey that you're cool with what's happening. you know?
Absolutely. It's true. And it's funny talking about birth plans because I remember going into my OB in Malaysia, which was private healthcare, and like presenting him with this birth plan. And he was like, okay, like this is not kind of how we do things here. I was like, I mean, they were very advanced. Don't get me wrong. He's trained in England and all of that. But it was like looking back, I just want to like hug that girl and be like, Amanda, just, it's okay. Like, I didn't even want to talk about C-sections. I was like, nope. I ended up having two. Like, if I had been more open to it, maybe the fear would have lessened and I could have been like more like, this is necessary rather than your body failed you, you know, because that was like a big thing postpartum with my first, which prompted a lot of videos around that. And I really wanted to connect with them and to share that, exactly that thing, like let it go, just kind of go with the flow because you just can't control every aspect of your birth experience. Totally.
Yeah. Preach. Okay. That's awesome. Right. Okay. So what brings you joy about your children?
You know, I like the kind of thing, like just let them be little. I like not controlling every aspect of their life and just letting them, you know, an example is I'm looking in my backyard here. My husband, he picked up these little climbing wall things, like these little brackets you would put on a climbing wall, but instead fixed them to the tree so that our daughter could like climb the tree and get to the branch she wanted. And yeah, she's got a ton of scratches from the first few times and she might hurt herself, but I kind of think that's like part of childhood. And I want them to create their own memories and then be part of the fun too. So yeah, right now at this phase, it's like watching them figure out what they enjoy and just letting them have the freedom to do it.
Totally. And what challenges, now that you're looking at it, you have a little bit more breadth and experience. What challenges do you feel like, you know, you're going through right now in terms of motherhood? Right? Because I'm assuming your daughter's at school, right?
She is, yeah. So she's going into grade 2. This week, she just started summer camp. She's so pumped. It was so cute this morning, like chatting miles a minute to go to this summer camp. And oh my goodness, I find the hardest thing right now is, I'll give you an example. So she's small but mighty, this one. And we take her to the public pool. And she hasn't done any swimming lessons, but the girl can swim. But, you know, she's getting there with her strength. And so she does the swim test to see if she can swim across the pool and back to get the little wristband to be able to swim in the deep end. She has done it twice successfully. However, she's been really tired after because she's still really, you know, new in early beginning stages and they won't pass her. And she is mad as all get out. She's just like, how dare they? Like, I did it. They never specified that you weren't supposed to be tired, you know? And I find the biggest struggle is like not protecting them from everything. Like as a mama bear, you're just like, oh, I want to take that lifeguard and have a little chat because I am fiery too. But I'm like, no, this is life. And you're not going to get everything that you thought you were going to get. And so you have to try 3 or 4 times and it sucks. And it's really hard for me to not be like, oh girl, like, let me tell you what I feel about that lifeguard. And you just have to let them do it. So I'm finding that part, like, it's hard. That is hard for me to not protect them from every fall, you know? Yeah. So that's a big one.
I think that's true for most moms, right? Like, I think we all want to just kind of like protect our kids, be there, shield them. We see things like we're looking at what's happening and we're like, oh, I see where this is going, you know? And it's like you wanted to jump in and just rescue them. But you're right. Like, we just need to chill.
Yeah.
Right? Allow what's happening to happen and be there for the falls, you know?
Totally. Because I find that, like, I don't want to generalize, but I am paying attention to the types of adults that are coming into the world. And when I was managing young people, like 10 years ago, I guess it would be now, damn, 10 years ago. But I was managing these people and like their parents would be calling in sick for them. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, why are we not equipping our kids with the tools to be functioning adults where sometimes you're going to have difficult conversations or go through difficult things. And I want you to have the tools to do it. And that may mean heartbreak. And so I'm all about like coping. How do we cope and get through difficult things? Because baby girl, there's tons of stuff coming ahead. And I won't be there to protect everything, right? And so it starts now, I think.
Oh, yeah, it totally does. You know, I was thinking as you were just saying that, just about like in my daughter's grade 1 year, she had a challenging teacher. And a lot of my mommy friends said, you should just go to the principal, ask him to take her out, you know, put her into a different class. And I said, you know what? we're not going to do that, right?
Yeah.
Instead, I talked to my daughter and I explained in life, there's always going to be people that you don't mesh with who, you find it challenging to be around. This is a good
Totally.
learning experience for you. And so I know this year is going to be a little bit of a challenge for you. I totally get it. But your dad and I are here. We're here for you every step of the way for the rest of the year. As many times as you need to complain or vent or cry, come and do it. But at the end of the year, you're going to feel so proud of yourself because you stuck it through, and you're going to realize that you're stronger than you think you are.
I love it. Totally. It's hard for us parents to go through that, but you have to let them do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, right? It's tough, man. Okay, so let's see. What do you believe it means to be a mindful and intentional mom in this day and age?
Ooh, that is tricky. I think it almost initially, my gut reaction is to say you kind of have to pull back from social media to a certain degree, because you can be so overwhelmed with the messaging that's coming at you. It's like you have to sort of take time for yourself and look inward and what makes sense for you. And I think I find like I get a lot of questions from women who, like, one thing that often surprises people is, like, for one, I co-sleep for it's still happening. And I breastfed for a really long time. And I think sometimes people have an image in their mind of what a person may look like or sound like who make those decisions, which makes no sense. But anyway, and I just say, you know what? I ended up realizing that I feel like sometimes I took the easy path in parenting, but I realized, no, I just did what made sense for me and my family. And I think that you have to sort of think like that. And that may mean you have outside voices like family members or social media people or whoever it is, but you have to quiet the noise and go, what makes sense to me? What makes sense for my family? And find confidence in that. And I often say to people, like, what was it one? Oh, my son. So he's 4, but he took a little while to potty train. We finally just crossed that hurdle.
Congratulations.
So, yeah,
I know the struggle's real.
Right? Like, no more, we have nighttime diapers, but I'm fine with that. But I was getting a lot of questions like, well, he should be out of diapers. And I finally was like, you know what? Like, are you changing the diapers? And in a little bit of a sassy way, I kind of thought, it's not impacting your life whatsoever. So don't worry about it, And I think sometimes it's equipping yourself with maybe a sentence or you and your spouse are on the same team and you've had that discussion. Like, if so-and-so says this, we're going to respond like this, and sort of preparing yourself, because not everyone is perhaps as fiery. But I think that's, for me, it's being mindful is just like doing what makes sense for you, having the confidence to go with that path, and just letting the chips fall where they may elsewhere. And in terms of social media, following people that are maybe thinking the same way as you, so you're not constantly questioning everything that you do as a parent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. It's interesting because usually in the summer, I'll do like a little bit of catch up with the kids because they're in French immersion. So I try to do catch up with English with them, right? And this year I decided I'm actually going to work on EI with them. Right.
Ah.
And so the kids are like, are we not doing book reports this year?
Nice.
They're like so confused about this. Right. And I was like, nope, we're just practicing being mindful. Right. We're just being present. We're just learning a little bit about ourselves and learning how other people operate too, so that you can recognize other people in their good health and also recognize other people when they're being a little bit more unhealthy. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so it was just really interesting, just the idea of having that conversation, looking at their faces and realizing that they're like, what the, like,
what is going on with mom?
Right? Exactly. Right. And, but then also realizing that just the idea of slowing down enough so that we can even do this
Totally
is so important. And I know that there's some of my friends, they totally give me the look, like, what are you doing with your kids this summer? Right? Because like last year when I said I'm doing book reports, that made sense to some of my friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, yeah, totally. They're in French immersion. You're doing book reports. Makes sense. This year, it doesn't make sense. Like, they were like,
right.
They're not getting it. And I realized that it's exactly as you said, like, you need to quiet the noise and just be okay with your choices.
Absolutely. And I mean, why not start those conversations now? Like, if they can be more in tune with that, it's only going to help them, right?
Absolutely.
Love it.
And so what do you love about your son and what do you love about your daughter?
Oh, unique things. Okay. Something that I find so interesting about my daughter is that she has a confidence in her that I don't think I knew I had till much later. And I tell this story and she gets so mad when I tell it, and she doesn't understand why I'm so proud of her. But here is a prime example of her ability to like look out for the underdog no matter what other people think. So she's in class and she's in grade 1. Also in French immersion. So it's a kind of a smaller group. And, as the summer months were coming, it's getting hotter in class. And so a lot of the students have their juice box, or not juice boxes, but their water containers on their desk, their water bottles. And I guess one of the girls had juice, and the teacher didn't want her to keep the juice on her desk because she was worried it might fall and go on the carpet. And so the teacher took the water bottle and put it on her own desk. So Esme didn't know the intricacies of this, but she did see the situation where now her friend is thirsty and has no drink. So she thinks about this and she's like, nope, not on board. Gets up out of her desk, goes to the teacher and politely says, I'm not okay with the fact that you took my friend's drink.
Whoa.
Yeah. In a way that was respectful, but questioning the adult. And I really I am so proud of her for that, because I just think she saw a behavior that she felt was unacceptable. Someone's now thirsty. And whether you're a teacher, a student, a peer, whatever, I respect you enough to challenge you. And I thought, wow, at 6 years old, there is no way I would have done that with a teacher. And so to me, she's willing to step outside of her comfort zone and say something about it. So I love that fierceness in her. But let me tell you, it does backfire on me a lot of the time, because I have the mama and I'm the mama, and she's, a lot of that fire is directed at me, but I'm okay with that. Because I know it'll serve her well when she's grown. And with my son, he's 4. He is a funny little dude, but I'm finding I don't know if other moms will relate to this, but there's a humor in him that I can't tell if he does it just to get attention. So sometimes I have to find myself not laughing at him because he's licking my kneecap or something, or you know what I mean? He's like, I'll give you a kiss. And then I'm like, what? And he licks my face. He's just such a little dude. But I do love that he still wants to snuggle with mama, and that they still both do that, but I love that he is my baby, and I think he will forever be. But watching him become this little boy who wants special time with dad, and then wants his own quiet time on his own to play around with his toys, or just spend cuddle time with mama. I think I'm still enjoying that little, he's still my little baby, even though he's 4 and he's starting school this fall, which is insane to me. But I still cherish that little time with him.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, it goes so fast.
It goes by way too fast. It's
honestly.
Yeah. My sister was saying that to me earlier today. She was like, her little guy's turning 5, and she's like, how is he 5? And I said to her, how is your niece 9?
Honestly,
seriously.
She's almost double digits.
Right?
That's
and
crazy.
I'm like, how did this happen? It's so funny. I tell this story, when I used to tuck her into bed, I used to stand in one spot and tuck her in. It was really sweet. And oh my goodness, she's so precious. Now I'm halfway down the bed, still tucking her in every night. And I'm just kind of man, when did you get this long?
Honestly.
Right? Wow.
It's crazy.
If you could pass on a word of blessing to your kids, they're going to sometime in the future come across this recording. They're going to hear your voice. What do you want them to hear you say to them?
Without crying, let's see. I think I want them to know in a way that doesn't freak them out because it's a heavy responsibility, but that their arrival in my life changed me, gave me purpose, and set me on a path I didn't know I was destined for. So I've always been the leadership type. I've always, gone into management roles and kind of done well in my career in that sense. But when I had them, it was a sense of purpose of trying to be the best person for them, but also not losing myself in the process, and recognizing that being a mother is just part of who I am. It's not everything, but having them almost allowed me to recognize the other parts of me in a confusing way. It's oh yeah, I am this kind of woman, and I do love these things, and this is a great quality that I have. So they really laid that for me and allowed me to walk down that path. And so I'm grateful for them. And I can't wait to see what they do with their lives.
So I'm really curious, what are some of those things that you found yourself seeing about you?
I think I realized that I often will ask people, like, what's their superpower? Because I think we all have something within us that's unique and special that is different than other people. But one of the things I find is I naturally bring people together, and I like to, like, I'm an extrovert, a self-proclaimed like extroverted extrovert. However,
Really?
oh, you tell,
A little bit.
little bit. But introverts will often, like, I have many introverts are my friends, and I'm always like, oh yeah, I guess you are an introvert. But they'll often say, like, you're the type of extrovert who appreciates that we don't have necessarily all that energy to put out, and I don't expect it of them. Like, I'm very much like, yeah. So I think I naturally bring people together. Like when I first arrived in Malaysia, I met no one. By the end of it, I was the one like leading the baby groups and bringing people together and picking up the mamas at Starbucks. Like, hey, you're pregnant, come to my house for a baby group or whatever. And so I think that's one of the biggest ones. And then finding my space online and realizing that, why people come to my part of the internet, whether it's the podcast or Instagram or YouTube, it's really to have conversations, to feel like it's a real person that you're having coffee with. And I never want to be that aspirational person. I don't want anyone to try to be me. It's like, let's find out what makes you tick, what makes you awesome, and just do more of that, live your best life. And I'm just kind of showing you how maybe I'm finding ways to do that over here, but it's not always perfect. And I think finding that confidence within myself that you can have good days and bad days and still like really dig your life. So I think that's a little bit in a nutshell what I was able to find out. Yeah.
I like that. You could have good days and bad days, but you still dig your life. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to thank you so much, Amanda. This is going to be our last question, but really just thank you so much for being here and for just sharing your heart. This has been really awesome for me. And I know it's going to be super awesome for the people who are listening in too. And so this is the last question. Mm-hmm. What words of advice or wisdom do you have for any mamas out there who are listening in? Mamas listening in all over the world, really, expats, people who are here locally. Like, what advice do you have for any of those mamas?
I feel like these like little mantras come into my mind. The first one that came to me during labor, because that was no easy feat, was this too shall pass. And maybe that's some strange biblical reference. I'm not even religious, but I just feel like it's important to know that, like, it may be hard, but it is temporary, whether it's labor, whether it's teething, whether it's like, anything. I feel like with your first, you don't realize that it's such a short window. And all of a sudden 2 weeks go by and you're like, oh yeah, we're out of that stage. And look at this new one that's difficult or fun or whatever. So this too shall pass. Find your tribe. Whatever, it doesn't mean it's going to be family. It doesn't mean it's going to be friends you've had since high school. Like you as you go through phases of life, I feel like your people that you need and the spaces you need them to fill is going to change. And I'm a firm believer that people hold a place and a time in your life, but not necessarily forever. And even family relationships don't have to be so important forever. And that's controversial, but I think a lot of people who maybe don't have the most ideal family setup will kind of hear me out on that. And the last one is like, just do you, boo. Like, whatever it is, if you think you're taking the easy road, it's probably the right one for you. If you feel like you're met with like challenge after challenge and whatever it was, like I tried sleep training, could not do it. If it works for you though, do it. And I feel like finding your strength and finding that confidence. And it doesn't have to be as vocal as what I do online, but it could be a quiet confidence in knowing that you feel good with decisions you're making and go with that. So I feel like that's good, solid advice for people who are starting out on their motherhood journey. And I wish them luck because it's like the most fun you can have.
You've now reached the end of another episode of Village Mama. If you're enjoying it, I would love for you to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes, and also give it a 5-star review on iTunes. It's very much appreciated. Thank you. So until next time, keep treating yourself and others with compassion and grace. Take care.